It is late autumn, and you are standing in a cold stone cellar beneath a farmhouse in Ohio. There is no hum of a refrigerator here. There is no little green light glowing in the dark. There are only shelves, and on those shelves sit jars and crocks and cloth-wrapped bundles, and some of what you are looking at is older than you are. There is a jar of honey on that middle shelf that could sit there, untouched, for 1,000 years, and at the end of that 1,000 years a child could dip a spoon into it and eat it, and it would be sweet and clean and good. 1,000 years. Your smartphone will not last 5. Your car will not last 20. That mortgage of yours may outlive both, but it will not outlive that honey. And I want you to feel the strangeness of that, standing there in the dark, that a thing made by bees and gathered by plain hands with no machine at all could shrug off time itself while the modern world rusts and rots and dies all around it. Now I want you to sit with this, because most folks have it exactly backward. They believe that keeping food is a modern triumph. They believe the refrigerator saved us, that the freezer saved us, that the factory with its dates stamped on every carton is the thing that stands between a family and hunger. But refrigeration, the whole electric business of it, is barely 100 years old. It is the new thing. It is the newcomer. For all the long thousands of years that people lived and loved and raised their children on this earth, they kept their food without a single wire running to a single wall, and they did it so well that some of what they made would outlast the men who made it. The date stamped on the can at the store is not the truth. It is a guess, and often a fearful one, and it has made you forget what your own great-grandmother knew in her bones. My name is Amos. I am Amish, and I farm a valley here in Ohio, the same valley my father farmed, and his father before him. I did not learn what I am about to tell you from a book, and I did not learn it from a school. I learned it from my grandfather, who kept a root cellar that fed 9 children through winters that would frighten you. And he learned the smoke and the salt from his father before him. My mother taught me the sugar and the canning, standing at a wood stove in July with sweat on her brow, and she learned it from her mother before her, who came across on a wagon with a crock of sauerkraut lashed to the side. This is not knowledge I own. It is knowledge that passed through me on its way to you, and today I mean to hand it down. There are a handful of old ways that make food refuse to die, and once you understand them, you will look at every shelf in your house differently. There is the way of the dryness, where you take the water out and life simply stops. There is the way of the sweet, the honey and the sugar that starve the rot before it can begin. There is the way of the salt, the oldest guardian, that pulls the water out of everything and leaves nothing for decay to feed on. There is the way of the sour, the ferment and the pickle, where you fill the house with friendly life so the wicked life has no room to move in. There is the way of the fire and the seal, the canning that our grandmothers turned into an art. And there is the way of the fat, the lard and the oil that lock out the very air. 6 old ways, and 20 good foods that ride upon them, and by the end you will have a pantry that laughs at the calendar. Let me begin with the sweetest of them, because it is the one that started us in that cellar. Come back to that jar of honey. Here is the marvel of it. Honey does not spoil because there is almost no water left in it, and what little sweetness it holds is packed so thick and so heavy that no living thing can survive inside it. Now you already know this in your own body, though you may never have thought of it. Have you ever eaten a great salty meal and woke in the night with a thirst you could not slake? That is your own flesh pulling water toward the salt. A bacterium that lands in honey feels that same terrible thirst, only there is no glass of water to reach for. The sugar all around it drinks the water straight out of its little body, and it withers like a leaf in August, and it dies. The bees give you more besides, a faint natural acid and a whisper of peroxide. But truth be told, the honey does its killing mostly by thirst. They have a fancy word for what the sugar does to the water, but you do not need the word. You only need to know that a starving thing cannot rot your food. Keep your honey in a sealed jar, out of the heat and out of the light, for heat is its only real enemy. And if it turns cloudy and hard on you, do not throw it out. Do not ever throw it out. Set the jar in a bowl of warm water and give it a little while, like a warm bath for a stiff old back, and it will come loose and clear and golden again. Honey does not expire. Honey simply waits. And what the honey does, the sugar does too, which is why my mother turned half the orchard into jam every summer. When you cook fruit down with enough sugar and seal it away, you have caught that soft fruit at the very edge of ruin and frozen it in place, not with cold, but with sweetness. The sugar is thirsty, the way a dry sponge is thirsty, and it drinks up every bit of loose water in that jar until there is nothing left for mold or bacteria to drink. That is the whole secret of a jar of jam that keeps for years. The one thing sugar cannot abide is damp, so keep your sugar itself dry and sealed, or it will clump into a brick. Store it right, and plain white sugar will outlast you and your children both. It does not go bad. There is nothing left in it alive enough to go bad. Now here is the part most folks do not know, and it takes us to the salt, which is the grandfather of all of this. Long before anyone had sugar to spare, they had salt, and with salt, they kept meat through winters when a spoiled ham could mean a starving family. You take good salt, the plain pickling kind with no iodine in it, and none of those anti-caking powders they slip into the shaker, and you pack it thick over your meat, near about a half cup for a batch, and you let it sit. And here is the wonder. That salt pulls the water clean out of the meat, and it pulls the water clean out of every bacterium hiding in the meat at the very same time. You already know this feeling. Have you ever swum in the ocean and come out with your skin gone tight and puckered? That is the sea salt pulling the water up through your own skin. Now imagine you are a germ the size of a speck, sitting in a mountain of salt. Every drop of moisture is dragged out of you, and you shrivel to nothing, and you die. Meat with no free water in it cannot rot, because rot is a living process, and life needs water the way you need it. Salt to draw the water out. That is the whole of it, and it kept this country alive for 300 years. The salt has a cousin, and that cousin is dryness itself, plain and simple, the sun and the air doing the same work with no seasoning at all. This is the oldest way there is, older than salt even, and it is the humblest. You slice fruit thin and lay it in the sun, apples and peaches and plums, and you wait, and the water leaves, and what remains will keep for a year or more in a sealed jar. You take lean strips of meat, the leanest you can find, because the fat is the enemy here, and you dry them slow into jerky, and you wrap them in brown paper inside a tight box. You take your beans, your dry white beans, and your rice, plain white rice, and your wheat berries and your oats, and you seal them away from air and damp in food-grade buckets or glass or those mylar bags, with a little oxygen absorber tucked inside, and they will keep for decades. Decades. Not months, decades. Cornmeal, kept dry, will feed your grandchildren. Powdered milk, kept sealed, the same. Why does dryness work such magic? Because life needs water. Every living thing that would spoil your food, every mold and every germ, needs water to move, and to eat, and to breed, and when you take the water away, you do not kill them so much as you send them to sleep. You put the food into a kind of suspended animation, the way a seed sits dry in a packet for years and then bursts to life the moment you give it rain. That is what a wheatberry is, after all. It is a seed. It is patient. Only two things wake the rot back up, moisture and air, so you seal against both, and dry food will wait for you longer than you will ever need it to. Water is the enemy, remember that. Dryness is only the answer to it. Now here is the part most folks do not know, and it is my favorite, because it turns the whole business on its head. So far, every old way I have told you kills life to save your food. The salt, the sugar, the sun, they all work by killing. But the way of the sour does the opposite. It saves your food by growing life, the right kind of life, on purpose. When my grandmother packed shredded cabbage into a crock with a little salt and left it to sit, she was not killing anything. She was inviting the good little bacteria, the friendly ones that live all around us, to move in and eat the sugars in that cabbage and turn them sour. And once those friendly ones fill the crock, there is simply no room and no food left for the wicked ones that would make you sick. You already know this in your own body, more than you know. Your own belly is full of good bacteria, billions of them, And when they are strong and many, they crowd out the bad ones and keep you well, and when they are weak, you fall ill. A crock of sauerkraut is nothing more than a healthy gut in a clay pot. It is a neighborhood so full of good, hard-working tenants that no thief can find an empty house to break into. That sourness, that acid the good bugs make, it is poison to everything that would rot the food, but it is a tonic to you. This is your pickled vegetables, your kraut, and your apple cider vinegar, the raw kind, with the cloudy strand they call the mother floating in it. Pickled right and sealed, these things keep for months and years, and here is the strangest part, they get better as they age. They do not die, they ripen. The fire is the next way, and it is the one that would make your grandmother weep with pride to see done properly. When you take your tomatoes or your beef or your fruit or your good soup, and you cook it hot and pack it boiling into a jar and seal that lid down tight, you have done two things at once. The heat has killed every living thing inside that jar, every last germ, cooked dead, and the seal has slammed the door for no new germ can ever get in. You already know this in your own body too. When a sickness gets into you, your body raises a fever. It makes itself hot on purpose, hot enough to kill the invader off. A canning jar in a boiling bath is a fever with a lid on it. You heat it hot enough to kill everything, and then you lock the door before anything can come back. Canned fruit will sit on your shelf good for 5 years. Canned beef, canned soup and broth, 3 to 5 years at plain room temperature, no cold needed at all. My mother canned in single meal portions, 1 jar, 1 supper, so nothing was ever wasted and nothing ever sat open going bad. Fire to kill, and the seal to keep it killed. That is canning, and it is a grandmother's art. And the last way is the way of the fat, which is the simplest of all. The great enemy of any fat or any rich food is the air, for it is the air, the oxygen in it, that turns fat rancid and slow rots everything it touches. So you use fat itself to lock the air out. Our people would cook down meat and then pour hot melted lard right over the top of it in the crock, and as that lard cooled it set into a hard white seal, airtight, and the meat beneath it kept for months without any cold at all. Coconut oil does the same trick on itself and keeps for 2 to 5 years, while lesser oils turn rancid in a matter of months. Why do some fats last and others spoil so fast? Think of it like your own skin. Your skin is a barrier, and it keeps the outside world out and the inside world in. A saturated fat, the lard and the coconut, is a tight and orderly barrier that the air struggles to get through. The thin, unsaturated oils are a loose and leaky barrier, and the air slips right in and spoils them. So the fat both seals the food beneath it and, if it is the right kind of fat, refuses to spoil itself. The fat is the skin over the food. It keeps the air out. Now I am going to stop and speak to you plain for a moment, the way my grandfather would stop and set down his tools when a thing truly mattered. I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. I am not a doctor and I am not a scientist, and I will not pretend to be either one. These are old ways, and they are good ways, and they fed this country long before any of us were born, but they must be done right, and done wrong they can make a family sick. Bad canning especially can breed a poison you cannot see or smell or taste, and it is a serious thing. So do not take my word and leap. Begin small. Learn the pickling and the drying first, for they are the most forgiving. Find a good tested guide for your canning, and follow it to the letter, and never eat from a jar whose lid has bulged or whose seal has failed. Respect these ways the way our grandmothers respected them, with care and with patience, and they will serve you as faithfully as they served us. So let me give it back to you plain, the way you would give a list of chores to a son heading out the door, so that it sticks. Take the honey, and keep it sealed and cool, and it will outlive you. Take the sugar, and dry the water out of the rot before it starts. Take the salt, and pack it thick to draw the water out of the meat and the germ alike. Dry your fruit, and your beans, and your grains, and seal them away from air and damp, and put them to sleep for years. Sour your cabbage and your cucumbers, and grow the good life that crowds the bad life out. Fire your jars in a boiling bath, and lock the door on the germs forever, and pour your fat over your meat to seal out the air that rots it. Sweet, salt, dry, sour, fire, fat. 6 old ways, and a pantry that will never let your family down. Now before you go, do a thing for me, and do it honest. Tell me down below where you live and what your people did to keep their food through the hard months. Was it a smokehouse out back? Was it a root cellar dug into a hillside? Was it a grandmother with a crock of kraut she guarded like gold? Tell me your place and tell me your people, both, because I want to know the country you come from and the hands you come from. I read every single comment that is left on these videos. Everyone. Your grandmother's way may be the very thing another family here has been searching for, and you would be passing it down the way it was passed down to you. And come back next time, for I want to show you something I have been saving. It is a plain glass jar, and a thing that nearly every household in this country throws straight into the bin without a second thought. A thing you have thrown away 100 times. And with those 2 humble things together, and no machine